So the number one film on my list that shaped my experience at school is another high school film, Rushmore from 1998. Is directed by Wes Anderson, starring Jason Schwartzman, Bill Murray, Olivia Williams, and Brian Cox. Plot summary from IMDb. A teenager at Rushmore Academy falls for a much older teacher and befriends a middle-aged industrialist. Later, he finds out that his love interest and his friend are having an affair, which prompts him to begin a vendetta. So this film for me is number one, not only because it's one of my favorite films of all time and just a really important film to me just in terms of my life and my love of film, because I still remember seeing it in theaters at 15 and just the impact that it had on me then. But in terms of school, it really captures this feeling in high school that, I definitely felt, and I saw it around me too, where you kind of want to be an adult. You really want to grow up and you want to start acting like what you think an adult is, but you're still a kid. You're not an adult. You haven't gone through those things yet. You're not emotionally ready. You haven't gone through enough life experience. But it's that feeling where all you want to do, or at least I felt this in high school, is you want to be like, okay, now you're off, like you're growing up, you're close to 18, you're going to be leaving home soon. Like, I'm an adult. I want to be treated like one. So Max Fisher, who's the main character played by Jason Schwartzman, in many ways like a Tracy Flick-ish, in terms of just an incredibly well-written, well-rounded, one of the most interesting characters I've ever seen on screen. He is in this private all-boys prep school, and he dresses up even beyond his dress code. Like, the dress code is clearly just, slacks, khakis and a button-down shirt. He wears a jacket and a tie and the school emblem on there. So he's really trying
and
to...
a beret.
And a beret. Yeah, exactly. So he's trying to act so much and like put off this air of like, oh, I'm an adult now, and he's involved in all these clubs. So he's, starting all these different things as sort of like the head of this group. So he's being in charge of all this stuff. He's even acting like he's part of the administration sometimes. Like, he's design an aquarium that they're going to build, so he's there like at the groundbreaking as if he has any kind of power or control over any of this stuff, but he likes to think that he does. He has this air of importance about him. He puts on these plays that are incredibly mature, plays that would be something you might find at a high school or postgraduate in terms of the topics they're dealing with. Not definitely a high school production, but he's stretching for this. But at the same time, he's also like a terrible student. So he's behind all of this airs of being an adult. He's kind of, sacrificing both his academic future, but also you realize as the film goes on that he's doing this to kind of hide feelings of pain and isolation, probably driven by his mom's death that happened when he was very young. So he's sort of putting on this air of adulthood in the context of high school to hide like this personal pain that he hasn't yet got over. And the plot thread that they mentioned in the plot summary of him falling in love with having a crush on this teacher, again, is a way for him to act as an adult. Like, she's, a young teacher. She's probably in her, late 20s or something, but he's, 15, 16. But he's trying to put on this air of, oh, no, we can totally date. Like, I'm an adult. This is fine. He goes to plans this big romantic dinner after one of his plays, and he thinks it's going to be some big adult moment for him. But when she brings a date, he throws a temper tantrum, again, showing that he is still just a kid. Like, he's not actually the adult that
Luke Wilson again.
Oh yeah, Luke Wilson. And just this performance I do remember. But a lot of connections between our films so far. So yeah, I think, for me, I think what this movie does is really just captures, as a high school student, how you like to think of yourself as an adult, and you put in all these airs and even these external appearance things of like that you should be treated as an adult. But at the end of the day, like, you are just a kid. You still have a lot of growing up to do. And Max does do a lot of growing up in this film once he realized to accept himself for who he is. And that's a big character moments in here. But, something whereas when you graduate high school, I don't think you've still kind of found who you are. You're still growing and evolving. And I think that's what this film kind of shows, that you might say in high school what you kind of want to be, and you're putting that out there, but it's not really who you are, and you'll eventually find that. So also on another personal note, much like the Legally Blonde, where in terms of watching it film, I went, like I said at the beginning, to a all boys prep school in New England. And I remember them coming around the an announcement was made at our lunch because we all had to eat lunch together as a school. Hogwarts, like these big long tables, and they're like, oh, there's a movie that's coming out that they're looking to cast, young boys. It's gonna movie set in a prep school. They're basically doing a casting call for Rushmore because they did a big, like, they're trying to find who to play Max Fisher and all the background actors and everything like that. So I'll always remember. I didn't know what it was at the time. Like, I remember the name of the, like, I don't know what this is, and then I eventually saw the movie. It's like, oh crap, like that was. I did not end up going to the audition. But
no.
I know. I could have been Jason Schwartzman, but I just always remember like having that connection to not only the filming, but then also the school. Like, again, all boys school, dress code, spanned 7th through 12th grade. Rushmore was, I think, started in kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. But that environment was something I was very used to. And that was what my high school was like. And I think this movie, just from a superficial standpoint or aesthetic standpoint, really captures what it's like to attend an all boys prep school in high school. So again, had to put this number one on my list for, of those reasons, but mainly for this fact that, I definitely felt as when I was in high school that, I was an adult, I'm ready for this, but you're not. You're definitely not.
That's amazing. I didn't know that you went to a prep school like that. So that's good to know. Yeah, this is, obviously a classic. As you were talking, I was thinking about this, that it's funny that Jason Schwartzman's character is acting like the adult, but the adults in the movie are actually acting like children.
Right. Well, Bill Murray's character specifically.
All of them,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like Max's father, he's doing his best, but he's also an enabler in many ways for Max's, craziness. And even Olivia Wilson's character, even she, like, you're an adult. She tries to kind of, put him at bay when he's trying to make, advances towards her. But once again, it's kind of done in a very mixed messagey, not in a super clear, accountable way like an adult would, where somebody would sit this kid down and say, no, what you're doing is actually inappropriate. So it's sort of interesting how all of that is sort of lopsided. But that's the point of the movie,
Yeah, definitely.
It can be a little cringy. Often this movie, the interactions that he's having with the two adults and how the three have kind of become best friends. And if you start to really analyze and think about this movie, it can be quite weird and cringy. But that's, I think, is what's Wes's genius, is that he deals with these topics like another director with the same subject. This is a very dark movie. But this is not a dark movie, and he sort of is able to handle those nuances, very, very beautifully. And like you were saying earlier about Tracy Flick as well, that you do develop empathy for Max Fisher. I mean, we covered Lady Bird in our last episode. I prefer Lady Bird as a character to Max Fisher. I think Max Fisher to me is the more annoying one.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm the exact opposite.
Exactly.
I have no empathy for Lady Bird.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. Like for a while, I was like, okay, I can't really. This is just too much with the beret and all your clubs and all the things. Like, I'm gonna come and slap you at some point. But as the movie goes on, you do develop empathy for him. And I love the him and Margaret and that whole angle, because he finally meets somebody who calls him out. Like, she's the adult in the entire picture. That, what are you doing? And you hurt me and you're horrible. So I do like those final moments, just the way you like the final moments of Lady Bird. I mean, I love this movie too. Like, it's beautifully made and it's kind of brilliant. But great to see it on the list.
Yeah, it's interesting too, that with Election, where it felt very realistic. Like, it felt like you're in a high school. Yeah. And here it does. I mean, it's Wes Anderson, and it's not as extreme as he might get in some other movies in terms of the whole music box aesthetic. But it is you can tell it's a film. It's not meant to be something that's a capture. It's heightened. So I think that helps with a lot of the interesting kind of, again, like a 15-year-old hanging out with this 55-year-old industrialist guy. Like, it all does seem kind of weird, but in the context of this fake universe that he kind of is creating, you question that a little bit less
Yeah.
versus an election. Obviously, the relationship that Tracy has with one of her teachers is it feels very gross and weird and wrong because it is, because the movie's shot like, I mean, obviously that crosses lines that Max Fisher never does, but it is just interesting comparing this to, I think Wes gets away with a lot because of the aesthetic that he creates, which again, like I think just from a filmmaking standpoint, I mean the cinematic composition, the widescreen I mean the way that he stages some of these shots, you can tell every character's emotion, where they're coming from, what they're doing, just by looking at the frame and how they're moving around in the frame. It's fantastic. I actually hadn't seen this movie in about 10 years. I used to watch this like almost on a weekly basis as a high school and college kid. Like this is like my favorite movie for a very, very long time. And it was just interesting coming back to it and actually seeing a lot of, I was able to look beyond the Max Fisher character, which I identify with so much that was the movie was basically just him to me. And now watching it, I could sort of see, oh yeah, Murray and Olivia Williams, they're both just as damaged. And I think it's all just about damaged people and how they relate to that. Max covers it up with being an adult. And I think you're right. Like the adults cover their damage up by kind of acting like children and being immature and doing things that adults really aren't supposed to do. So just, yeah. Anyway, great film. I really, really enjoy it.
Really great film. Great soundtrack too, by the way.
Yes. I
ended up sort of putting a lot of the songs that I was listening on while watching the movie this time on my playlist. I was like, oh, these are some really, really good songs.
Yeah, I mean, Wes does such a great job of putting music in his films, and I think this might be the best example of that too. But
totally, yeah, he's such a curator, in the true sense of that word, across the board. So
yeah, great songs. Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.